Hello, and welcome to the first 2025 episode of this Pokemon Scarlet Surprise Trade Crochet Badge Quest. In this series, I'm surprise trading a Pokemon before each gym, Titan, and Team Starbase, and then crocheting the Pokemon we receive each time. Last time, Mimikyu jump scared us for a very spooky Halloween episode. We took on Mela's Fire-type Team Starbase and then grabbed this Litleo for trade. We are now reaching the halfway point, which I think is crazy, but our 9th traded Pokemon in exchange for Litleo is the Emotion Pokemon Ralts. It's been a long time since I've had to crochet a whole 3-stage line in one video, so let's get started by taking a look at this Ralts. Okay, so it's level 16, so not too far from evolving into Kirlia, but more importantly, I can see that he's male. For those that don't know, the Ralts line splits in two. Ralts will evolve into Kirlia at level 20, and then into Gardevoir at 30. But if you have a male Kirlia, you can use a Dawnstone to evolve him into the Psychic Fighting type Gallade instead. I thought this could be a great option, but then I see his nature. A quiet nature means that this Ralt has more speed but less attack. Attack is Gallade's biggest stat, so I wouldn't want to hinder it in any way. Plus, tracking down a Dawnstone seems like a pain right now, so, as you've probably seen from the thumbnail, we'll be going for Gardevoir this time. Evolution decided, now I need to find a suitable challenge. At our current point in the story, the most logical challenges would be Iono's Electric Gym in Levincia, the Lurking Steel Titan Orthworm, and Atticus's Poison type Starbase. Gardevoir will have weaknesses to all of these challenges in some way. Fairy is weak to Steel and Poison, and Psychic is weak to Iono's Ghost type Mismagius. I decided to go for Atticus's Starbase, as we have super effective Psychic damage. His future set in stone, Ralts now has to train up to reach his first evolution. This section won't take too long, just 4 levels, so we take on a couple of trainers and before we know it, Ralts is evolving. Before that happens though, let's crochet this baby boy. Breaking down Ralts' design, they have a round head capped by a larger, green, bowl-like haircut. The bowl has a small slit at the front and several grooves that run along the top and sides. The line's signature horns sit atop on the front and back of the bowl. Ralts does have eyes under the bowl, but they are very rarely seen. Whether I add them or not, I'm not sure yet. The body is slim and short. It ends with thick, trouser-like legs. I always felt like Ralts was kneeling down, but I think it's more supposed to look like a small child whose trousers are much too long and drag behind them. They have quite long sausage-shaped arms that reach down to their legs. Quite a simple design, but I was apprehensive about how to approach the loose material at the back of the legs. The colours I'll be using for Ralts and the rest of the line are white for the head, body and limbs, green for the hair, and a pinkish red for the horns.
Okay.
I'm going to work Ralts a bit backwards than I usually work on a project. I'd normally start with the head, but this time I'm starting at the legs. I make an oval to act as the base of the foot, and I'm reminded of the old Pokédex footprints. This small detail in the Pokédex made the world feel more alive, like you could track this Pokemon from its footprints. It really sucks that they removed this feature, only bringing it back in BDSP. Anyway, I looked up Ralts' footprint, and and it doesn't look quite right. Are these legs actually trousers then, and Ralts has skinny little legs underneath? BDSP did fix this though and give him a big flat print. Once I have a large enough oval, I start to work on the torn ends that trail behind the legs. In the back loops, I add in these triangular shapes and then continue back to my original oval. By working in the back loops, I can then work the front loops and continue the foot all as one piece. It is a little flat, so I would have done this differently in hindsight. I keep crocheting round to give some height to the leg. Ralts' legs get thinner as they reach the body, so I decrease my rounds every so often. Once I feel that I have a big enough leg, I make another one. As always, I post pictures of my works in progress on social media to see if anyone can guess. This picture kinda looks like a foot with toes, so not surprisingly, no one came close to guessing who it was. Maybe Kirlia will have more luck. Also, did you spot the clue for Ralts in the last video? He pops up just behind Carrie as she burns down her school. See if you can spot the clue for the next Pokemon in this video. Once I have both legs, I crochet them together, making them just one round. I can then continue up the body. Again, the body gets thinner as it reaches the head, so I decrease every few rounds until I reach where I want the heads to begin. I increase out my rounds quite a bit. Ralts has a big old grapefruit head. He's very top heavy, so I want to make sure I increase a suitable amount. As you see me do 1,000 times, I make a ball for the head and fasten it off at the top. The top of the head will be covered, so I don't need to worry about it looking loose or messy at the moment. Moving on to the bowl cut, I make a large circle. The bowl overhangs Ralts' face, so I need it to be larger than the head I've already made. I keep measuring it up against the head, so I know I'm going in the right direction. After a while, I reverse my rounds to make the slit in the bowl. I'll add the grooves in later once I've affixed it to the head. I make a long tube shape for the arms, stuff them and stitch them to the body, before I move on to the final piece, the horns. Ralts' horns are not quite semicircles. They're slightly longer, so I make my half circles more tombstone shaped. I make two and check them on the head. They do look a little bit like tongues. I don't stitch them on just yet as I want to add the grooves on. I use a darker green yarn and sew through the heads, down the centre and sides like a green basketball. Now I can stitch the horns on and Ralts is finished. I don't give him eyes as they would be mostly hidden anyway. Ralts evolves into Kirlia, giving him a small boost in his stats, including an extra 20 points in special attack. Kirlia has a long road ahead of him to reach his final evolution, and I felt it best to head towards our destination, taking on trainers along the way. These Pokemon are still overleveled for Kirlia, but with some switch training, he's able to take them on soon enough. I exhaust my resource of trainers, and so make my way into the tag tree thicket to tackle some of the poison types within. The last time we were here we were hunting for apples, but now we're taking on the thicket's main challenge. This Venonat will give Kirlia the final bit of experience to reach evolution, so let's again break down the design for Crochet. Kirlia has the same white round head as Ralts had. This time the hair comes down the face to a point. This allows the eyes to be fully uncovered. The hair reaches around the back too, leaving a small gap for the neck. Some of the hair overhangs down like ponytails on either side. The horns have changed position but remain the same shape. The body stays short but is much wider at the base, extending out to a 6-ruffled tutu. Underneath the tutu, the body changes colour to green, and Kirlia has 2 very skinny legs, standing in the point position on his tippy toes. These legs mean that my Kirlia will not be able to stand freely. I can't possibly create a strong enough crochet that can hold itself up on thin points. I think this is where Ralts' Pokédex footprint comes from. It may have slim legs like Kirlia underneath the wide trousers. Kirlia's arms are similar to Ralts', but they have wider forearms that end in 2-fingered hands. They usually hold their hands up to their chest in a classic ballet stance. Unlike Ralts, I will begin Kirlia with the head as I always do. I make the ball in white and slightly larger than Ralts' head. This line won't be to scale, but I'd still like each one to be bigger than the last. Once I have a big enough head, I stuff it with polyester filling and the remnants of past projects.
See all that stuff in there, Homer? That's why your robot never worked.
I can then continue down the neck and body. I increase my rounds as I go to achieve this shuppet looking shape. As with Ralts, I want to craft the body as all one piece, so I work on the tutu next. In the front loops, I crochet a number of stitches and then work them in rows to make these long rectangles that hang out from the body. Once I reach my desired length, I work down the side of my rows to the original round and repeat this until I have 6 ruffles. I'm not super pleased with how this looks, but we'll go with it for now, as I switch colours to green in the back loops to make Kirlia's booty underneath the tutu. I close this off after I've made a half sphere and move on to the arms. Again, making a long tube as I did with Ralts' arms, but I make the forearms much wider before slimming down my rounds. I stuff these, but I also add some wire down the centre so that Kirlia can bend her arms into his classic pose. For the legs, I make something very similar. The first leg I made felt way too skinny though. There's no shame in having to redo something, but I usually avoid it if I can to save time and my sanity. I inherited my dad's need to be a perfectionist, but I know things won't get done if I get caught up in the fine details. So I remake the legs, not too much time lost. I post another leg to social media, and still no one gets it. I think this one looks a lot like Bulbasaur's vine, so it's another sneaky clue. I stitch these on and Kirlia is coming together. I wasn't really sure how to make the hairpiece shape, which is why I left it until the end. I decided it will have to be separate shapes. The first shape being a cone that I can flatten down. This shape will reach the centre of the head before I craft the next shape. I make a large oval that will cup the back of the head. Kirlia has this small slit in his headpiece that encircles the neckline, so similarly to how I did the slit in Ralts' bowl, I turn my work and leave a gap. the pigtails, I make a rectangle that is wider at one end. Would that be a trapezoid? Let's go with trapezoid. I make 4 of these and get everything stitched together. I'm not quite sure what happened here, if I lost some footage or if I just didn't record some bits, but I don't have any progress shots of Kirlia's hairpiece coming together. I do have footage of me making the horns though. I don't make them quite as long as Ralts's, but they are a very similar shape. Cutting ahead again, I've sewn on the groove down Kirlia's hair and stitched everything together. I stitch a light grey yarn onto the hands to define the fingers more before I make the eyes out of felt. Because Kirlia has a white face, I found that the white felt didn't stand out against it, so I added more of that light grey yarn around the eye to make it pop. I also used it to give Kirlia a little smile. Finally, Kirlia evolves into Gardevoir, and we are ready to take on our challenge for this episode. Or are we? Both Kirlia and Gardevoir are said to be able to see into the future. Gardevoir sees into his future at his current level and doesn't like what he sees. I want Gardevoir to have the best chance against his challenge. We've had some Pokemon faint against their respective fights, so to give Gardevoir a fighting chance, I want to level him up to 35 so we can get Calm Mind. This move will raise Gardevoir's special attack and defense, which might allow us to sweep Atticus's team. So it's back to training. If I were a smart person, I would have kept Kirlia from evolving until 33, where they learn Calm Mind earlier. Gardevoir's special attack stat has almost doubled in evolution though, so training is much easier. We could take on the poison types in Tagtree Thicket, who are in the level 30s, but just outside of Tagtree are Hariyama and Dugtrio that also offer big experience. It takes no time to reach level 35 and get Calm Mind on our moveset. We are now ready to attack Atticus, after we crochet of course. Gardevoir's head is the classic white orb. The green hairpiece has the same point as Kirlia, but curls round at the back. White spikes overlap the headpiece at the side of Gardevoir's face, and the eyes stay on show. The white runs down Gardevoir's slim neck before circling off at the chest. The rest of Gardevoir's slim body is green, with long green arms that end in 3-fingered hands. Gardevoir's dress is white and flows down in 6 segments, covering his slim white legs. The legs are well hidden, only shown in certain animations, and Game Freak don't allow us to revolve the Pokemon fully, so I can't see the underside of Gardevoir. I understand there are possible reasons for this, They don't want you looking under a Pokemon's dress, but it's really difficult to get a full 3D view when you want to make art. What if I needed to see what the underside of a Lairon looks like, or if Ursaring has pads on their feet? I have to rely on quick pausing the 2 animations available to me in the decks. It would be great if we even got sleeping or fainting animations added to this. Anyway, the front 2 pieces of the dress are the shortest, with the middle ones being longer, and the back 2 ending in points and trailing along the floor when Gardevoir stands. The inside of the dress is green. The horns of Ralts and Kirlia are no longer horns and now sit in Gardevoir's chest, almost like he's been pierced through the back by a half-heart shape. The overall design of Gardevoir is very feminine, to the point where even the Legends Arceus Pokédex says that its dress is reminiscent of those worn by ladies of nobility. I think this may have been the reason why they introduced Gallade as a male counterpart in Generation 4. I'm going to come into this crochet section having already completed the head. I started with a white ball and crocheted down a thin neck before coming to the chest section. I had a few ideas in mind about how to make the chest. I could make it all in white and continue down the dress, then add the green on like a vest later. I could continue going around but switch colours between green and white. These both seemed like a hassle or wouldn't look quite right. My solution was to make these circles that hang off the neck while still attached to the piece. Once I have one circle, I continue back to the original round and make another circle on the back. Then I can switch my colour to green and continue the round around both circles. Once I have a suitable length of green, I join up the base of them into one round. This leaves the sides open, but I will stitch them together later and leave a gap for the arms. I switch to white again to do the base of the body, which will eventually taper out into the dress. I increase the base, and then, similarly to how I did Kirlia's tutu, I make the ruffles of the dress. As I said when looking at the design, the front 2 pieces will cover the legs. The middle 2 are slightly longer, and then the back 2 are pointed and drag behind Gardevoir. This was a long process with a bunch of maths to make sure I got it right, and boy am I bad at maths. I finish it off, but I would have made the back 4 much longer if I were to redo this project. With the inside of the dress being green, I made the same shapes in green but slightly smaller so that they wouldn't be shown on the outside. They're all stitched together, and funnily enough, they're thick enough to kind of stand Gardevoir up, even without the legs. I don't know what the base of Gardevoir's body looks like under the dress, so I make a small circle to act as a stopper so all the filling doesn't fall out. I can then make the legs. They are very slender and quite long. However, due to my placement of the stopper, I can't make them as long as I wanted. Another mistake. I should have made long legs and attached them with no stopper. Moving on to the hands and arms, I make 3 cones for the fingers, with the centre one being larger. I crochet these together to make one single round and then continue up the arm. The arms are quite flat, so I make sure to stuff it lightly and then make them slimmer from the elbow onwards. I make 2 and stitch them onto the body where I left the open sections earlier. The chest horn is shaped differently from Ralts and Kirlia. The back section is just a half circle, with the front being a sort of triangular shape. Because of the shape of the chest I've made, I have to make the horns slightly bigger than I'd normally want to, so they do look a little off here. Finally, it's time to make the hairpiece. Again, I'm doing them in multiple segments. The front part is a cone shape that I can flatten, with the back being an oval once again. The hair curls under the face, so I make a cone which slightly changes direction to give it that curved shape. I do a few extra rows so it can latch onto the back of the head properly. I can stitch these on and do several small white triangles to make the spikes on Gardevoir's face. I've heard people say that in Gardevoir's original sprite, they thought that these spikes were the face, like a Mr. Burns face whistling at the trainer. These are stitched on, and I add the grooves of the hairpiece as well as these lines along the dress before making the eyes out of felt. The line is now fully finished. It has been a long journey for me making these. Back to the game for the big finale. At the gates of the Navi starbase, we are stopped by a grunt and a small sassy child. The child offers to battle us so the grunt can escape and warn the others. He says he owes Atticus his life. What on earth did Atticus do for this child that he owes him a blood debt? We easily blast his Pokemon into dust with Gardevoir, and we're finally allowed inside the base. I did find out that these bases must have level caps. I'd previously thought that I made mistakes when selecting my Pokemon to take on the challenge, but Misdreavus is skipped over in this case for Azumarill. Go-Goat obviously struggles in the challenge, but Gardevoir does alright and pushes us through to defeat 30 Pokemon, luring out Atticus, the boss of the Navi starbase.
Back at it again at Krispy Kreme.
We enter the battle. I send out Gardevoir and Atticus sends out Skuntank, the poison dark type. I terrestrialise to a pure fairy type. I already have the weakness to poison and steel, so I might as well use this power to boost my fairy type moves against this Skuntank. Gardevoir calms his mind as Skuntank tries to sucker punch us. This move can't hit us while we're using status moves like Calm Mind, so this is the best move for us to see from the skunk. I Calm Mind again, Skuntank Venoshocks us. This move is super effective, but since we've been boosting our special defense, it does very little damage. I Calm Mind again, Skuntank now uses Toxic to badly poison us. However, I knew this would be coming, so I equipped a Pesha Berry, curing our poison immediately. At +3, I think we're ready to attack, and I unleash the full power of a Psybeam on a Dark type. I don't know why I did that. Full disclosure, this footage is months old, and I don't remember if this was a misclick or I just plain forgot Skuntank was Dark type. This allows Skuntank to badly poison us again with Toxic. Our next Dazzling Gleam takes out the Skuntank, and we can move on to the next Pokemon, Muck. This Muck only has 2 moves, both of which are special, so I take this time to use a full restore. Muck uses a Sludge Wave that actually does more damage than I'd like. It also, annoyingly, poisons Gardevoir. I hit back with a Psybeam and knock out Muck. Revavroom now comes out. This was a Pokemon I was worried about. The Steel typing resists Psychic, and it will hit us hard with its physical Iron Head. I go for a Psybeam, hoping my Calm Minds are enough, and they are. Revavroom goes down in one hit, and Revavroom comes out. But the Starmobile Revavroom. This one is pure Poison type, but it still has a Steel move. It uses Noxious Talk, its signature move, and knocks out Gardevoir. I now realise that half my team is weak to poison, so I send out my only hope, Mischievous. I go for a Psybeam as the Starmobile uses Spin Out, lowering its speed. This gives me an idea. If Gardevoir can outspeed the Starmobile, we may be able to take it out. We could have a redemption here. So I revive Gardevoir and begin to whittle down Revavroom with Psybeams. However, it uses Flame Charge to now boost its speed, so my plan may be moot. We exchange hits back and forth. I'll keep a counter of Rev's current speed condition up here. He'll spin out and lower his speed, I'll Psybeam. He Flame Charges to raise his speed, I'll Psybeam. I'll loaf around, he'll spin out. We continue like this until we're both at red health. Almost like Mischievous knows Gardevoir needs the killing blow, he loafs around so Revavroom can hit a final spin out, lowering his speed further and knocking out Mischievous. You did well, little ghost. Now's our chance. Gardevoir hits the field again, now at half health. Did he see this in his future? From the moment he was traded to me, was this destined to happen? Gardevoir hits out with one final Psybeam, outspeeding the Starmobile and finally taking it down. It was a rough ride, but Atticus is defeated by Gardevoir. As always, defeating a Team Star boss gives us a short cutscene from about a year and a half ago. We see that Atticus has crafted costumes for each member of Team Star, and his fellow bosses boost him up, praising his fashion skills. Atticus gives us the poison badge, and we're reunited with Clive and the sassy child from earlier. The boy tries to convince Atticus to return to the academy, and we find out that no one in Team Star has ever met the big boss. Cassiopeia tells us if we defeat the last two Team Star bosses, the big boss is sure to reveal themselves to us. I attempt to capture this Oranguru for our next trade. Has Gardevoir already seen who's coming next? Have you? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Short outro. I know it's been over 2 months since the last episode. I started crocheting Ralts, Kirlia and Gardevoir, and then I kind of fell off it a bit. I got bored because they are very similar, that I was crocheting the same thing over and over again. And I kind of got hung up with trying to make each one work, that I stopped for a few weeks and then came back to Gardevoir in December. And then Christmas happened, things got busy at work, and yeah, it just took a little time to actually get this out. But finally doing it, this will be released, and I'm currently working on the crochet for the next one. So yeah, these should be out a lot quicker now. Hopefully there won't be another 2-month gap. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.